There.
Yep.
Okay, we're live.
Goal setting started to be examined as early as the 1960s. Almost 60 years later, goal setting is still a topic of interest as it relates to how it actually affects performance. Researchers have examined goal setting and feedback within different populations, such as students, sports teams, professionals, and individuals who are just looking to lose weight or to improve on their overall health. These researchers have determined several elements that are thought to influence performance and goal setting. One of these elements is positive or negative feedback. So, for example, stating, "Great job" or "Way to go," versus "That wasn't really good, try again." How complicated the goal is and the length of the actual goal are the next element. So, basically, does it matter how many steps a person has to complete in order to reach their goal? And an example of length would be, am I eating healthy for 2 weeks or am I eating healthy for 2 years? Goal evaluation and overall accountability are the final elements. So does it matter if a person isn't reminded of their goal? And does it matter if their progress isn't shared with others? The hypothesis that is stated in the majority of the research is, that we looked at is that goal setting and some sort of feedback will increase performance. In a 2013 study, researchers chose students as participants to determine how negative or positive feedback would have an impact on the level of motivation an individual actually has to complete a task. So the researchers administered an exam and provided some students with negative feedback and other students with positive feedback. After the actual study concluded, the researchers determined that there was not a significant difference in the performance of those who received positive feedback versus negative feedback. The next study looked at individual rugby skills within a rugby team. So for 10 games, 5 players were evaluated on certain rugby skills, and their games were videotaped. Prior to the next 10 games, the players were allowed to watch and evaluate their performance and then set a goal for the next 10 games. Overall, this study determined that all 5 participants, that their rugby skills actually increased related to the goal setting and evaluation intervention. A study that we looked at in 1996 examined the number of sit-ups that 56 female college students could complete. Researchers wanted to determine if no goals, vague goals, or goals such as just do your best, or short-term or long-term goals made a difference in their performance. Conclusions of this study determined that participants who chose a more difficult goal showed an increase in performance, and both long-term and short-term groups performed equally as well. So what this suggests is that specific goal setting could lead to increases in performance over generic feedback such as just do your best. In a study conducted by Martin, McNally, and Tagger, the role of self-evaluation and how it impacts goal performance was examined with undergraduate business students. Researchers also examined the motivating role of self-knowledge and self-evaluation on the goal-setting process. So participants were subjected to different test conditions such as self-evaluation versus external evaluation when attempting to complete a task. Results showed that increased self-evaluation promotes the generation of the goal performance, and self-validation and the pursuit of self-knowledge help to motivate self-evaluation. The final research study that we looked at had 3 female soccer players as participants, and the study sought to determine if public posting, goal setting, and feedback would make a difference in their overall performance of certain soccer skills. A chart was posted in public that showed the progress of each player, and their progress was then reviewed with each participant. The study concluded that the intervention package did improve their performance during practice games, but the intervention failed to enhance their performance during regular season games. All parties did support the use of the intervention package in the future. In a recent study by Wack, Crosland, and Miltenberger, goal setting and performance feedback were evaluated to determine if it would have an effect on running distance. So the participants included 5 women who had an interest in running and participating in the study. The study included long-term and short-term goals. If the runner was able to meet the short-term weekly running goal, they could set a higher goal for the next week. If they did not meet their goal, the participant could choose to maintain or lower the next distance goal. So the results of the study showed that all runners did increase their weekly and daily running totals by the end of the 11 or 16-week study. Although there was, of course, variation in the different runners' success. So as a group, we attempted to replicate this study, the findings of Wack, Crosland, and Miltenberger, as it examined the effects of goal setting and performance of feedback on our individual running performance. Now, our study differed from the original study as we are all non-runners and we only had 5 weeks to increase overall running distance.
So this study was designed to assess the effects of goal setting and feedback on our running performance. So the participants being the 5 of us, female graduate students from Ball State University. Each of the participants live in a different location across the United States. 3 of us live in the central Midwest region, and 2 of us live in the Western Mountain region. The materials required were any exercise attire necessary for the weather of each respective participant, which ranged from very nice to very snowy. And then we all got the Map My Run app, and we could use treadmill or street running. We had to pick one to do for baseline, and then we were to compare our street running, if that was our choice, to Google Maps, or take pictures of the treadmill and enter it into Map My Run, so that all of our data would be on one sheet. The study was designed to use goal setting and feedback to increase miles per running event. The running event is defined as a continuous run at a speed faster than a brisk walk, as defined by the article written by Wack, Crosland, and Miltenberger. So each participant will download the Map My Run app to track running data. Map My Run uses GPS technology and then the information that is input to calculate averages, running times, distances, pace. It'll show you when you've run consistently enough, when you've increased your pace or decreased your pace, and if you're running at the top 25%. So it calibrates all of that with your running history as well as the data that's input on the app. Because of its use of GPS technology, we found in baseline that using Map My Run while on a treadmill interfered with the accuracy of the GPS technology indoors, and so it was not compatible with running alongside a treadmill. So instead we took pictures and then manually entered the data into Map My Run so that all of the rest of the statistics were able to be calibrated. The study was designed to take place across 5 weeks. We took baseline for the first week and logged 5 opportunities to establish stability of performance. The following week, we selected an initial goal based on previous running and exercise history. Participants that met their goal at least 2 of the 3 running events that week had the option to increase their goal for the following week or maintain and try again the next week. Participants who did not meet their criteria maintained that same goal for the following week, and then the same criteria was held up for the next 2 goals. Treatment phases involved using goal setting and data collection apps to increase running distance. And we updated our goals and our online data sheets bi-weekly when we met with the team.
So I'm going to go over the results with everybody. First, I'm going to pull up, our graphs. They're right here. So starting off, I'm going to go through Brooke's success. She first set her, so everybody started with the same baseline. We were all non-runners prior to the study, which means our baseline, you will notice as I scroll through the graphs, we all had a 0.0 baseline because we were not running. So we took our initial baseline and we were all at 0 miles per session. In our first week, which was our first goal week, you'll notice it's a changing criterion design. And so it varies a little bit from person to person if they met their initial goal. So if you met your goal, you were able to move into the next goal based on what your goal was. So starting with Brooke, you can see that her first goal was set at 0.3 miles per running session. After the first week, she did not meet her goal. So she actually kept her goal the same at 0.3 miles. So you'll notice her running session was 2 weeks long for her first goal. Once she was able to exhibit that she was able to meet 2 of the 3 running sessions per week at 0.3 miles, she was able to establish a new goal. So Brooke's first goal was 0.3 miles. It took her 2 weeks to achieve that goal. And then she set her next goal at 0.5 miles per session. Again, it took her 2 weeks to finally kind of accomplish that goal. And then it was the end of the trial. So Brooke overall started at 0.0 miles per session, and she was able to increase her running distance to 0.5 miles per session, which was her goal in the final phase. Then moving on to Sam. Sam also started at 0 miles per session. Her first goal was 0.5 miles. She was able to meet that goal in the first week and did quite well. And then she set her second goal for 0.7 miles. This took a little bit longer for Sam to achieve. As you can see in the graph, she had some success. Her first running session was a little bit higher, it was actually 1, but then she had a lower session and finally a higher session. So it took her, it actually took her 2 weeks to get to 0.75 miles. Excuse me, I misspoke. But as you can see, she started out lower and then she was able to kind of level it out. Finally, in the third goal, Sam set her goal for 1 miles per session. She did not meet that goal at the end of the study. So as you can see, she started out quite fine with 1.0 miles and then was not able to. My prediction is that if she continued another week, she might have made it. But due to time constraints, we were only able to run a 5-week study. Moving down, Neely which is me, I started out as a non-runner, and initially I set my goal at 0.5 miles. That actually took me 2 weeks to achieve that goal, as seen in the graph. And then the second goal, I actually increased to 1.0 miles per session, and that was pretty easy for me to meet. I don't know why I had such a hard time in the first goal, but I did. And subsequently, I set my third goal for 1.25 miles, and I was able to achieve that by the 5th week. And that took just 1 week to achieve as well. And then scrolling down again, we have Kelly's chart. Kelly made her first goal of 0.5 miles per week. And then it took 2 weeks to make her second goal, which she increased to 0.75 miles. So you see here, by the second week of her intervention phase of goal 2, she was able to achieve 0.75 miles. And last, she set her goal at 1.0 miles, and she did achieve that goal within 1 week. Next we have Jessica, and that is last, sorry. She started again at 0.0, and her first goal was 0.5 miles, and it took her 2 weeks to achieve that goal. Then she set her second goal at 0.75 miles, and she was indeed able to achieve that goal quite well. She actually exceeded it in the second phase of the intervention. And in the final phase, she set it for 1.0 miles. She was able to do that in the first 2 sessions, and she was not able to make it out in the last session, but she did achieve the goal of 1.0 miles per session. So ultimately, all of our participants were able to increase their miles run per session and over the course of the study. Some participants took 2 weeks to achieve some of their goals, and some took just 1 week. Overall, participants were able to increase their running goals with the use of goal setting and performance feedback program established prior to the start of the study. At the end of the study, we did administer a social validity questionnaire, excuse me, just kind of asking participants what they felt about the study. The questions included, did you enjoy participating in the goal setting and feedback study? Were you happy with the results that you achieved? And did you think the goal setting procedure was motivating? Last, do you plan to continue running now that the study has ended? We kind of had a little bit of variety in our responses. And the first question, which was, did you enjoy the study? 4 of 5 subjects agreed. They liked the study, and 1 was neutral to the study. And second, were you happy with the results? Everybody agreed, using a scale of 1 to 5 of agree to, or strongly disagree to strongly agree. So everybody agreed. Nobody strongly agreed, but everybody agreed that they were happy with their results. And third, do you think the goal setting procedure was motivating? 4 of the 5 agreed that the goal setting procedure was motivating, and 1 said they were undecided or neutral. And last, do you plan on continue running now that the study is ended? Again, 3 of the 5 people agreed that they would maybe continue, they would continue running now that the study is ended, and 2 were undecided. So that concludes our results section.
I'm going to talk about some of the limitations that we ran into when we were replicating this study. To begin with, there was a great range in age. So the study that we replicated, the participants were very close in age. When we did our replication study, there was a range that was much bigger in our participants. In addition to the age, all of our participants were females. When the initial study, it was a mix between both male and female. So that has the potential to skew some of the data that we ran into. In addition to gender and age differences, we had some different health and injuries that had the potential to play a factor in limiting the number of times that a participant could ultimately make it out to run, such as tendinitis or asthma. A variety of health concerns can definitely limit how often you can get out to achieve a weekly running distance. In addition to health and injury, like Jessica kind of mentioned, the participants in this study lived in a variety of areas. So with that being said, there was a variety of weather conditions. Some of us had rain, some of us had snow, some of us had a little mix of all of them in between. So as a result, sometimes it was more difficult for some to get out to run versus others, which can definitely limit how long you are able to run outside and how long you can really withstand the frigid temperatures that some of us had. In addition to that, the original study gave the option to meeting in person to set goals, which definitely could have played a different factor in how motivating the goal setting was for some. We didn't have that option since we were all over the country, so that was definitely another limitation to our study. In addition to that, our study was much shorter than the original study. The original study took about 15 weeks, and due to our semester time constraint, we only had about 4 or 5 weeks to complete the study. So with that, there were some limitations on how long goals could be set and how long it would take for those goals to be considered mastered. Finally, the participants in our study had the option to use either a Map My Run application or a treadmill application, not the universal Nike Sport Kit that the original study had replicated from. The Nike Sport Kit had a lot of other perks that our study didn't have, such as being able to continually being updated about your members, feedback and goal setting. We didn't necessarily have that continuous feedback or communication. We only met every week to discuss our goals. So those are just some of the few limitations that we ran into when replicating this study.
Okay, as previously stated, the study measured running distances of 5 Ball State students over a 5-week time period. The students had a variety of age differences and lived in different states. During each week, participants collected data by using Map My Run or taking pictures of the treadmill results. Each student compiled their data into a table created by one member of the group, so it could be viewed by each member, and each other's success or the lack of could be viewed by all. We met weekly to discuss the success and failure in meeting our goals and offered each other feedback, as well as setting new goals for the following week. In conclusion, the study determined that goal setting paired with positive feedback are effective in increasing running distances in non-runners. According to the graphs discussed earlier, all participants in the study started as non-runners and ended up increasing their distance over the course of 5 weeks. However, it is noted that not all students met their weekly goal for each week, and in that case, the student would work towards the goal for an additional week. In summary, the study determined that goal setting combined with delayed feedback is an effective intervention. However, we determined that further research should be conducted to see if this method works in different scenarios, such as not offering delayed reinforcement each week, the success of those who set more challenging goals, whether or not the results are still positive for established runners, effects of long-term goal setting, such as over the course of a year versus the short 5 weeks that we had to complete the study, the effects of having a support system or running with a group, and if this intervention is effective in other settings, such as when used in an academic setting versus an athletic environment.
That concludes the presentation of our study. And just before we conclude, we just also would like to recognize the references that we utilize for our study and for our literature review. And I'm just going to scroll through those very quickly. And that concludes our presentation.